an admired doctor who secretly murdered hundreds of his patients, a man who confessed to killing over 300 children and then disappeared, never to be seen again, and a killer so charming the police struggled to believe he was guilty. Today, we're counting down the top 5 serial killers with the most victims in history. These cases aren't just horrifying because of the brutality. They're shocking because of the sheer number of lives destroyed. Stay with me until the end, because number 1 is a killer who wasn't hiding in the shadows. He was trusted by everyone around him. Let's start with a name you probably know: Ted Bundy. Active in the 1970s across multiple U.S. states, Bundy confessed to 30 murders, though investigators believe the true number could exceed 100. His method? Deception. Bundy pretended to be injured, wearing a cast or using crutches, and asked women for help. Once they approached, he attacked. Most victims were young college women. What made Bundy so terrifying wasn't just his violence, it was how normal he seemed. He was charming, intelligent, and handsome. He even represented himself in court, turning the trial into a media spectacle. Motive. Bundy's murders were sexually motivated. He sought control and domination over his victims, combining sadism with narcissism. In 1989, Bundy was executed in the electric chair, and to this day, no one knows the full number of his victims. While Bundy terrorized the U.S., another killer in the Soviet Union committed even more brutal crimes. Now we turn to Andrei Chikatilo, the butcher of Rostov. Between 1978 and 1990, he murdered at least 52 people, women and children. Experts believe the real number could be much higher. Chikatilo grew up in Ukraine during World War II, experiencing famine, poverty, and violence. These early traumas, combined with sexual impotence, contributed to his violent fantasies. He lured victims with promises of food, money, or shelter, taking them to isolated areas where he committed brutal attacks involving stabbing, mutilation, and sexual assault. The Soviet investigation was mishandled. Several innocent men were arrested, some executed, while Chikatilo continued killing. Motive: sexual frustration stemming from impotence and childhood trauma, combined with sadistic urges. He was finally caught in 1990, confessed calmly without remorse, and was executed by firing squad in 1994. If you thought that was shocking, the next killer confessed to over 300 murders and then vanished. Pedro López, known as the Monster of the Andes. During the 1970s and early 80s, he targeted young girls in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, mostly between 8 and 12 years old. López himself was abused and abandoned as a child. He later admitted that these experiences fueled his hatred and violent urges. He was arrested in Ecuador, where he confessed to over 300 murders. Police initially doubted him, until he led them to graves of more than 50 victims. Motive: trauma, hatred, and sexual gratification. He preyed on the most vulnerable children to satisfy sadistic impulses. 1980. convicted of 110 murders in Ecuador. Across South America, experts believe his total victim count exceeds 300. Factually correct note, released in 1998 after 18 years in prison. Since then, his whereabouts are unknown. But he wasn't the only South American killer with such horrifying numbers. The next one was nicknamed La Bestia. Luis Garavito, aka La Bestia, the Beast. In the 1990s, he targeted street children in Colombia, many homeless or extremely poor. He gained their trust with gifts or money, then isolated them for torture and murder. Garavito confessed to 147 murders, but police believe the number exceeds 300, making him one of history's deadliest killers. Motive: sexual sadism and pleasure in inflicting suffering. Choosing vulnerable children ensured he had control over his victims. Colombian law limited sentences to 40 years, and because he cooperated with authorities, his sentence was reduced. Although still imprisoned, the thought that such a man could have been released is terrifying. But the serial killer with the highest confirmed victim count wasn't a shadowy figure at all. He was a trusted family doctor. Harold Shipman, known as Dr. Death. Unlike most serial killers, Shipman didn't hide. He was a respected physician in the UK, treating entire families. That trust is what made him so dangerous. Over decades, he secretly administered lethal doses of morphine to patients, often elderly women who trusted him completely. Shipman altered medical records to cover his crimes. Suspicion arose in 1998 when a patient died unexpectedly and left him her estate. Investigators uncovered hundreds of suspicious deaths. Motive: power, control, and narcissistic gratification. The ability to decide life and death. At least 218 victims confirmed. Estimates exceed 250, making Shipman the most prolific serial killer in recorded history. He was sentenced to life in prison, but in 2004, he hanged himself in his cell. These 5 men killed on a scale almost impossible to imagine. Bundy's manipulative charm, Chikatilo's brutality, López's sadism, Garavito's predation, and Shipman's betrayal of trust, each represents a different face of evil. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these stories shocked you the most, and why? Do you think there are killers still out there today, hiding in plain sight, just like Shipman did for decades? Share your thoughts, theories, or even questions in the comments below. I am curious to see what you think. If you want more chilling true crime stories, make sure to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future true crime stories. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.